And welcome. Happy Halloween, Sweet Pea. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm doing all right. Feeling spooky. It's been a fun October. It's been very busy.
Oh my god, it's been so busy.
Well, Halloween is also our anniversary, so we've had so much going on. Yesterday we had a murder mystery that we were a part of, and that was so much fun.
So much fun. Well, and I just feel like this happens every year, but we have something that happens every single weekend.
And so, there's just, the apartment's a mess. There's laundry to do. But luckily, November kind of slows down a little bit, and, especially for us, we're definitely going to be slowing down as we are very close.
7 weeks away.
From 7 fucking weeks away from a bouncing baby boy. That's wild. Bezic, fucking stop it.
There you go, buddy. He just wants your love and attention.
He doesn't get it. How have you been?
So rude. I accidentally made myself sick today, so...
You made yourself sick today?
I drank an iced coffee that maybe I shouldn't have.
The international delights aren't exactly the top quality.
No, well, this one was... There's something... I don't know.
I think there was something wrong with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite food poisoning, but my body did not like it because I drank it and immediately it was kind of like, get it out.
Not at all. Right now you're trying not to support Starbucks, so, that's kind of changed your coffee habits.
I don't drink that much coffee because I have to be really strict about how much caffeine I have. Mm-hmm. So I typically drink tea. But today, I was like, it's a coffee day, I'm tired. We were up really late last night because of the murder mystery, and so I was like, okay, fuck it, we'll get some iced coffee. Trying not to support Starbucks, I didn't want to wait in line. All the other coffee shops were really busy, so I was like, let's just get this.
Now, how come you're not supporting Starbucks?
They have been really shitty to all of their stores that are trying to unionize right now.
Solidarity forever.
And so, until they comply with those unions, I'm not going to be supporting them.
Class solidarity, that's goddamn right.
So
yeah, it sucks, though, because the fucking... That oat milk apple macchiato is...
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not as good as the blood of the working man, which we need to start supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah, take the bourgeois down. This isn't what I wanted to talk about, but,
you started it.
I did. Yeah, things have been crazy. And,
things have been crazy.
Yeah.
It's gonna continue to be crazy for 7 more weeks.
Indeed. But hey, you know what's kind of cool? We've kept up with this.
I know.
That's crazy, right? Shout out to everybody. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Texas, fucking thank you for listening. Somebody in Texas is telling a lot of people in Texas.
Shit.
I can tell. We appreciate you. Also, Virginia? I believe it's Virginia. Virginia. A lot of Canada is lighting up. New Zealand. And still that one person in Holstein, Germany.
Not responsible for his bullshit.
It's exactly how you pronounce it.
No.
So, Allie, it is Halloween.
It is Halloween.
It is the spooky season. It is the end of the spooky season, unfortunately.
We're recording this on the 30th.
We are. I'm going to make sure that it is edited either tonight or tomorrow morning. That way, everybody can listen to it for Halloween. What spooky shit have you been doing this month?
I haven't been doing as much spooky shit as I wanted to this
Me
season.
neither.
And I feel like it's my fault. I have been... nesting.
What is nesting, for those that don't know?
It's a weird maternal instinct you get when you're pregnant. And my nesting has been cuddling the cat and
watching Ghost Adventures.
Watching Ghost. It's my comfort food. I just want to... Because... Okay, here's what happened.
I tried so hard to find a Zach Baggins fucking story. And there isn't one.
He probably took him down.
Yeah.
Knowing him. But no, so it's just like this overwhelming urge to be comfortable. Animals do it. That's like literally it's based off of like the animals that get like birds who build nests, or there's mammals like I know like dogs when they're getting ready to whelp, they'll create a little safe place to have their babies and stuff. Cats do it too.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so that it's called nesting. And so it's just this instinct to be comfortable warm and safe, and ironically Ghost Adventures is my comfort food because 50% of the time when I'm watching it I fall asleep to it.
Fair. It's funny because in my head, because of the relationship with it, it's not spooky, so it's just like
No. Yeah, it's not spooky at all. Like I said, there's a 50% chance when I put Ghost Adventures on, I'm falling asleep.
Yeah. I watched way more horror than you did.
Yeah, you did.
And I wanted very best
to watch a lot of horror, but every time we talked about it, I was like,
I don't want to watch any of that.
I'm not.
I'm also fine with like Halloween adjacent things. We watched Practical Magic today, and it was adorable.
I love Practical Magic.
You cry every single time.
I do.
Let's see. I watched X. You saw a little bit of that.
I saw a little bit of it.
X is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Barbarian. You need to fucking watch that shit.
We watched Poltergeist.
We watched Poltergeist, Beetlejuice, which is what we always watch when we carve pumpkins. Yep. Let's see. I saw Smile. I saw Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
Was that really weird?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the tail end of that.
Not politically correct movie by today's standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad. I watched a movie called May. It's from the early 2000s. Anna Faris is a secondary character in it.
Huh.
And it's about a girl who, like... God, it's fucking weird. She just takes parts of people to create, like, the perfect, like, living doll.
Yeah. Like Coven.
Kind of, yeah. I watched Haxon. I watched a bit, man. And, like, I just love this month. I love this month so much.
I do too.
And, despite the fact that we spent most of the month in Russia...
Oh, true.
We're doing something spooky for this special. This is our Halloween special.
Yeah.
It's the first one. We've talked about doing it a few times. We're finally doing it. It's a Creepypasta episode.
Hell yeah.
So whether or not these are good, who knows? But, Allie, you have some Creepypastas. I have some Creepypastas. We tried to keep about 4 each, about 10 minutes or so, or shorter. That way, like, we could get through these and everything. We asked...
know why, but apparently mine are all December adjacent. I can't imagine what's happening in December that has been on my brain.
That makes sense. But
they are horror.
They are horror. Well, good. So, like, more like Silent Night, Deadly Night shit?
Kinda, yeah. Oh. If I'm not nesting really bad, I want to watch at least the first
fucking
two.
Krampus, Silent Night, Deadly Night. There's so many good fucking, the Christmas horror movies.
The kills in Silent Night, Deadly Night are...
Fan-fucking-tastic. Yeah, this is not really a research one or anything like that. This is just us goofing around a little bit.
We're just being goofy goopers.
Yeah. I'm going to send out the call. We want people to write in. We would love to do a listener pasta episode. Whether or not it's a story you personally wrote, it's something that happened to you, whatever. We want to hear from you.
Yep.
So utterlyunbelievable@gmail.com. That's UDDERLY @gmail.com. Should we just fucking get into this?
Let's just do it.
The regular scheduled programming of missing and exploited women, cryptids, aliens, and shit. We'll be back into it next week. In fact, I think next week it's one of mine, right?
If you want to, yeah, it'll give me a little bit of time to do some extra research.
Fuck yeah, I'll do a cryptid next week. Speaking of which, I got my anniversary gift.
Yeah.
Some of the people at work might have already seen it.
Are you gonna talk about what it is, or are you gonna?
I'm gonna leave it, and when the episode drops next week, everybody will be for sure. No, yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but it is fucking dope. It is so cool looking. Look at this.
It's so good.
It's fantastic.
It's so good.
If you need a tattoo, check out Jen over at Sacred Images. She's my artist.
Bozeman.
She's fucking wonderful. And yeah, if you're in Bozeman, yeah.
We love her.
She's fucking fantastic. Her bedside banner is like probably the best thing in the goddamn world. Anyways, shout out. We love you, Jen. So, do you want to go first or should I?
Sure. My first one is called Please Stay Awake by J.T. Gorgon. come on, the giant ad just popped up in the middle of it. Here we go. Cold, dark, and eerie. Those are the only words I can come up with to describe the house in which I had lived with my family for the majority of my life. Mostly dark, blistering cold during the winter, and always eerie. Sometimes there would be strange noises coming from the cellar, too. It had often given me the creeps, though I never admitted that to my mother. I figured I was too old to let some silly noises scare me anyway. I had been trying to act like the man of the house ever since my dad left when I was 7.
Gotta.
I always hoped I would never turn out to be like my father, whom I hated with a burning passion.
How do you become the man of the house at 7?
Misogyny.
Start drinking black coffee? Oh, fair, yeah.
As far as he goes, I suppose I'd better just leave it at that. I lived in the house with my mother, Linda, my uncle Kevin, on a vast piece of land in Steinen, Indiana. I don't know if that's how I'm pronouncing it, but I don't care.
Steinem?
Steinen was a tiny piece of shit in the middle of nowhere.
Dude, apparently that's just Indiana.
Well,
Everything
yeah.
I hear is just Indiana is just fucking trash.
Yeah.
I'm making it an utterly unbelievable mandate. Aside from the Demon House, Indiana ain't got nothing going on.
Oh my god, I want to cover the Demon House soon.
We can. Yeah.
Okay.
If me interrupting does not work, I won't.
Okay.
Okay.
Nobody liked living there. I didn't have any friends because I was homeschooled. And I'd never seen another kid my age in Steinen, since we almost never left the house unless my mom had to go into town to buy groceries. However, I was always very close to Uncle Kevin. When I was little, he would tell me ghost stories right before bed, which my mother hated. "Stop it, Kev, you're going to give him nightmares," she would snap. Oh, and I did get nightmares indeed. And sometimes it seemed as though the nightmares refused to end. They crept into the back of my mind like a spider crafting its web. The story he told most often was one about a monster with a contorted body and black eyes. According to the quote-unquote legend, as Uncle Kevin called it, even though I knew he made it up himself, the monster would come into your room if you were awake past your bedtime, hide in your closet, and watch you the whole night.
Ooh.
Of course, this was a silly little tale that Kevin would tell me so I wouldn't stay up late. Even so, I can't tell you how many times that horrible creature has popped into my head over the years. On this particular night, I decided to go to bed early in an attempt to sleep off a pounding headache. I lied down on my icy bed and sank underneath the covers, hiding my face from whatever may have been lurking inside of my head. After setting my glasses down on the nightstand beside my bed, I reached over and flicked off the light. The darkness made me feel alive. In a very strange way.
The darkness made me feel alive.
Almost as though I was memorized by the nothingness.
Oh. God, it's always flower. Fucking creepypastas are always written with like 8 extra words in a sentence.
As I looked around the room, seeing almost nothing but pitch black darkness surrounding me, I felt entranced, as if something was forcing me to look. Of course, there was nothing to look at least not with the eyes. This was something you can only witness within the deepest corridors of your mind.
Well, okay.
The part of your mind that you always dread visiting and can never seem to return from.
The side of my mind that enjoys fucking hamburger helper.
Out of nowhere, I began to hear scratches upon the window above my bed. My eyes immediately burst open, and I felt like I was unable to close them again. What the fuck was that? I asked myself.
What the fuck?
What the fuck? Nothing, of course. It was nothing. It could have been anything, right? Right. Just my mind playing tricks on me in the dark. No big deal. But, in a moment of childish curiosity, I decided to peer out the window.
He's 7?
No, his dad left when he was 7.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how old he is in this.
Arrested Development. He's mentally 7.
I decided to peer out the window just to make sure I was hearing nothing more than a tree branch brushing up against the glass. But then it hit me like a bag of bricks. There is no tree next to my window.
Oh. Oh.
Still, I decided it would be better to sleep it off and think more about it in the morning. It was probably
that's a pretty good time to think about it.
Right. It was probably all in my head. It had to be. I found it unusually difficult to fall asleep that night, as if somebody or something was trying to keep me up. I woke up the next morning with that sound still locked in my brain. It had to have been coming from somewhere. But where? Shit, I had no idea. But then I remembered. The cellar. I built up as much courage as I could muster and slowly crept down into the abyss. Jesus, I hadn't been down here in a year, maybe longer. I had almost forgotten what it looked like. Nothing but clouds of cobwebs, stacks of cardboard boxes shoved up against the walls. I rustled through a couple of boxes until I stumbled upon a picture I had drawn when I was a child. It was a sketch of a grotesque creature. It definitely wasn't human. This thing barely even had a face, just dark black eyes and no mouth. It was tall and thin, and was contorted into a shape that I had never seen before. The more I looked at the drawing, the more I was reminded of the story my uncle used to tell me. It appeared to be raining above the creature, and toward the bottom of the paper I had scribbled, "Please stay awake!"
Please!
In giant letters. I didn't know what the hell that was supposed to mean, but I folded up the paper and stuffed it in my pocket.
Oh.
I quickly made my way up the staircase and into the kitchen, and went about my day as usual, keeping that drawing in my mind, trying to remember what it meant, and why I had even drawn it in the first place.
Oh.
I looked outside and noticed it had began to rain. I didn't want to think about the creature any longer, so I walked into my dimly lit room and plopped onto my bed. I fell asleep before I even knew it. When I awoke, it was 3:00 a.m. exactly. This night was colder and darker than usual. The farm was soaked with rain from earlier in the evening. The moon was full and radiant. It almost didn't look real. For an instant, I glanced out of my bedroom window, and I could swear I saw something quickly walking through the yard. When it spotted me, it slunk behind a tree, as if it were trying to hide from me. It looked exactly like what I had drawn when I was a child. I ran into Uncle Kevin's room and began shaking him. "Kevin! Kevin!
Kevin! Kevin!"
He rubbed the rheum out of his eyes. "What's up, bud? It's late." It R-H-E-U-M?
Room?
Room?
Room? It's like a dwarvish word.
I don't fucking know. He asked, bewildered at my excitement. I looked him in his bloodshot eyes and softly said, "I saw someone in the yard." Kevin looked at me with hesitation. "No, you probably saw an animal. Go back to bed." "I know what I saw!"
I know what I saw!
This was no animal, or at least not one that I had ever seen, not even in my worst fucking nightmares.
Oh, whoa!
I knew I couldn't tell him exactly what I had seen, as he would never believe me.
You could try.
"No, Kevin, it was not an animal. Please, it was a man. I mean, I think. Look."
He look like a man.
"Please just go out and check."
It's fucking Miss Swan.
Oh my god, I loved Miss Swan. I fucking Stuart. What's wrong with you? Uncle Kevin leapt up and grabbed his shotgun from under the bed. "All right, come on, show me where he is. Let's try not to wake your mom. I'll scare the fucker off." We went outside and I pointed to the tree. I whispered to Kevin, "I saw him go behind that tree." My uncle bravely walked up to the tree and peered around it. Nothing. He searched the entire farm for well over half an hour, but he never found anyone or anything. "Let's go back in, bud. There's no one out here. Keep the doors locked tonight." He was wrong. I knew there was something out there. I crawled into bed and threw the covers over my face. I could hear the blistering wind coming from outside. It pierced my ears with a whistle that I thought only dogs could detect. Suddenly, I heard a tapping sound upon my window. The sound grew louder with each tap. I tightened my blankets around my body. The taps slowly turned into knocks. Louder and faster the knocks became. The knocks turned into bangs. I thought the glass was going to break.
My God.
And then, out of nowhere, it stopped. No more taps, no more knocks, no more bangs, no more wind. I was relieved. Suddenly, I heard a low, chilling voice in my ear. Please, stay awake. It couldn't be. No, it couldn't be. I ran into the hallway.
Billy Mays?
Ready to make my way into my mother's room when I saw it, whatever it was. I still don't know. It was holding Kevin's lifeless, mangled body in its arms.
Kevin!
Carved deeply into my uncle's torso were the words, "Please stay awake."
That's...
I tried to let out a scream, but only silence filled the dead air. I sprinted through the door into my mom's bedroom.
That's a lot.
And saw her body lying in the middle of the floor. She was covered in blood and her left arm had been ripped straight out of the socket.
Oh.
Written next to her in her own blood were the words, "Please stay awake."
Just get the guy some post-it notes.
I began to sob, and when I turned around, the creature was gone. I don't know where the hell it went, and I'm not sure what to do. I closed my eyes as tightly as I could, and I let out the loudest scream I could muster. I called the police and lied down on the cold, now blood-soaked floor, waiting for them to arrive. It felt like hours. Ugh. Finally, the police showed up to find me in the fetal position next to my mother's corpse. I told them everything I saw. I showed them my drawing. I told them about the taps, the knocks, the bangs. I told them what I've seen outside, but of course they wouldn't hear a word of it. Why would they? All they could see was a lonely kid hovering over his dead mother, her blood covering my clothes, almost as much as it was covering the floor. It's cold in this cell, and it's dark and lonely. The silence is the only saving grace. Constant, peaceful silence.
You know, man, for me, real life is inside. You know what I mean, man?
Tonight it's raining outside. It's colder, darker, and wetter than ever. That's what they call me in high school.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I must stop writing now. I just heard a tap on my window.
No!
Dot, dot, dot.
All right, okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It's a pretty okay. It's an all right story.
All right.
Okay, so this is probably my longer one.
Okay.
Of them. I tried to keep, like I said, we tried to keep these short. Okay, so it starts out, this was written as a green text on 4chan.
Okay.
So, like, it has a very stilted way of speaking, but it then, like, it's basically the guy's just like, you know, I'm going to stop doing that.
Okay.
So, might be a little confusing, but this is Anansi's Goatman story.
Oh.
Yeah. Here's my story. Be 16, be black, and have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting or camping. Down south, cousin suggests that we go out there to camp. No, I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. Collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something's weird. Air has this weird electric smell, like right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says, "Hello," and asks us what we're doing this far back into the woods. Tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and says we're camping out. He tells us we need to be real careful out here and stick together, as there was a big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. He says okay.
Okay.
I'm going to stop green texting because the story is fairly long and the format is harder to write in. So we end up playing football, dicking around with me. There's the white kid Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys. We were all around 15 to 17.
Nice.
Nice. We ended up just dicking the day away. Again with the dicking. So we head back to the camp and start pulling out some stuff for a campfire. Even though the trailers both had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it's starting to get pretty dark. They take flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property. The rest of us chill. We make s'mores, drink, and kiss on the girls.
Oh my god.
About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You could smell it over the smell of the fire we had started. This really nasty, coppery smell, like right after you've had a nosebleed and it stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that nasty, metallic, back-of-your-throat smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or someone left a hot plate or some shit. We search the trailer. Every time I do that, there's an exclamation point. We search the trailers and nothing is on, and we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. And Rooster and Tan and the girl all come running. I love how the girl has no name.
No, she's
no
the
agency.
girl.
No agency. All come running into the clearing, out of breath. And they don't even break stride. They all run into the trailer right by where the fire is. Run into the trailer right by where the fire... Well, that makes no sense. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailers. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower. So my other cousins say, fuck it, and are about to go outside to get the generator out of a shed between the trailers. Tanner goes, fuck no! Lock the front door! Ain't nobody getting else outside, nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, and his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit.
It's been clarified twice now that Rooster is crying.
Correct. But I just gotta let you know what a puss he's being. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure that they were careful on the way back, and that maybe you should take one of the hunting rifles instead, just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had come up, ripped up, and half-eaten. They assumed it was just some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. He had gone upstairs and packed his stuff and told his dad they would be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid people. So they started walking back towards where we were camping. So Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but she was just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says that
of a nail on her forehead. Sorry.
He says that they had gotten halfway into the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes. Right off the trail, they all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing back in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them, and what a dick he was.
Yeah, dick.
He says that when he realized that the guy was facing away from them, so they keep walking... He says that when he realized that, the guy was facing away from them. So they keep walking, and they start smelling that nasty, coppery ozone smell.
Actually, my name is Richard, and I prefer if you called me that.
I would prefer it. The dick nomenclature is very hurtful. They say they look off into the forest on the opposite side, and it's a dude standing in the forest, backward, slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking, and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle.
Are they suburban moms?
As they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong inside the cabin. They say that
trailer, not a cabin.
Yep. They say that after they started walking, it's almost like these were written by not professionals. They say that after they started walking faster, a kind of low gibbering had started coming from both sides of the wood. And as they started booking it back to the trailer, the girl said she had flashed her flashlight out into the woods to the side of them and had seen something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track, and they just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with a native kid that was telling him about the goat man or some shit. We probably tell him to shut the fuck up, because we don't need any spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking goat man, and how we're in his woods, and blah blah blah. Now at the time I'd never heard of the goat man, or any of that, but then a couple years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a Minam for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it. Minam is an indigenous tribe.
Oh, okay.
And to sum it up, it's basically a fucking man with a head of a goat, and he can shapeshift, and he gets among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like a Wendigo. It's bad mojo to even talk about it, or even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin is going, the goat man's gonna get in and fucking get us. The girls are all terrified. My cousins and I are all fucking trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or if it's some animal. So all of a sudden, the smell just goes away. Like to this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Like usually, smell fades away or lessen. It just literally was there 1 second and then not the second. That's how it's written.
Okay.
So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10. We stop shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it's just some assholes trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home, because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else weird happens that night, and we stay another night. And for the main part of the night, nothing happens. At about 1 in the morning, we're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories, as someone is finishing some too spooky story. I don't remember what about. The smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up, and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside, and this isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside, and we're standing around. My cousin just keeps on going on about how it's the goat man, and my cousin Rooster tries to shut him the fuck up. And all the while, I'm just feeling that something is wrong, but I can't figure out what the fuck it is. We end up sitting in there for a while. The smell is just as strong. We're terrified and all huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everybody because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. We don't need to know that. We don't. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's extra shit that is totally unnecessary. Right?
I don't know. You're not done with the story. Maybe it is necessary.
Maybe it is necessary. We have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog. I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I got 2 brats and everybody else only got 1. And I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were only 12 brats. And if he wants more, he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster at 10 starts screaming.
They had 3 packs though. They only had, if there's 4 in every pack, and there's 3 packs, that's 12, right?
Right, which means that somebody ate 1 extra.
Well, no, but he was like, open a new pack. It's like, well, you're out.
Yeah. Good point.
Just saying.
That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming, "Oh, Jesus! Oh, Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up, what the fuck is wrong?
I have that reaction sometimes when I eat brats. Oh, Jesus, get it out.
Me and him both glance around the room, and then I feel my heart fucking sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin, and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everybody books it out of the cabin. One of my cousin's friends asks us what the fuck was wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There had been 12 people in the cabin. But being that everybody didn't know each other really well, nobody had really noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realized earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. You know how when you're just dicking around and having a good time, that you don't sweat the smallest shit? And you don't always keep track of certain stuff? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in that trailer with us, and that they had been there for at least a fucking day eating with us, which makes it worse. I could figure out which one. I could figure out which one because I don't think anyone ever actually interacted with the other person / the goat man. The girl kept praying to Jesus, and we're all sitting outside. Eventually, we get big-ass sticks and go back in the cabin, but there's nobody in there. We count again, and there's 11 people.
Big-ass dicks or big-ass
sticks? Sticks.
Okay.
Excuse me. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened, and the girl says that she realized too, and that when he was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard and leaned over toward her and said something she couldn't understand. So we're pretty much scared as fuck as we huddle together, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep, and the other half are packing our shit up. We all want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up, and some people think we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the one that had the goat man head touch.
Oh, finally we get a name.
Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she just wants to go home, doesn't want to be out in the woods alone for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go can go, but I have to stay, because I have the keys to the cabin, it's my uncle's, and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point, because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously. Good lord, this just keeps going. I thought this was shorter.
That's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah. Finish it out, and if we need to not do as many.
Okay. Super pissed at this point. Feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I didn't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get a rifle and says he's going to be back, so there are just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., he hasn't made it back yet. We're getting extremely fucking antsy, and the only reason I stopped begging them to go back was because he went to get a gun. It's about 5:30 p.m. or so, when the one cousin that did says that the girl Kira is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why the hell would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the whole time the coppery smell has been gone. Now I realize I can smell just a twinge of it. I say to the rest of them and everybody, and these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods after we had the goddamn goat man in our midst, is laughing at me and asking if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, I'm not fucking bullshitting you right now. I asked them why the fuck would I play like that. So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how to fucking describe it. Sort of like if somebody has their back turned and was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This is like later in September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but it was super chilly some days too, and you could usually hear big ass geese honking or some kind of birds or squirrels chit-chatting. So I step outside the door and tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into the trailer and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one and put a guy there in a chair to watch her. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. The guy turns to say she's still there, and there's a huge fucking bang at the door. We all jump the fuck out and jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super fucking loud. So now my cousin is holding one of the girls, and the other 2 are kind of giggling with nervous laughter, and me and the other 2 guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" So we go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Do you want me to keep going? We can stop there.
No, finish it up.
Okay. Evidently, we had walked into the campsite. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was almost halfway to the trailer he had realized that she was getting closer to him. She started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking it would open, and when he got to the door and it was locked, he turned and it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around the room and then he gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and whispers in my ear, "You know there are only seven of us in here, right?" I get that feeling where your stomach drops to your nuts. I had been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out what was going on, and then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day, it has just slipped right back in. We looked out the window, there's nobody out there. So we recount everyone, and then basically I go over and ask everyone how many people were here earlier, and everybody says 8. I say, well, how many are here now? They all do the count, and then realize there are only now 7 people in the cabin. So Tan had brought back a couple of boxes of ammo in his rifle, and he had told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think his dad would believe him if he said it was the goat man. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours, and that in the morning we can all go back to his place with his cousin and he will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking terrified, but I at least feel better because we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is that comes back.
Oh, God.
But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them, and that she's getting really scared and that I'm not funny. He keeps telling her that I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know that the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it really is the goat man, how do we know that this is the real Tanner and the goat man just didn't kill just Tanner in the woods and take his fucking gun? So we fucking get into a huge argument about this, where me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger because at this very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. And at worst, something bad is in the force and it's fucking with us.
Oh my God.
One of the girls is crying, saying she wants to go right now. And we're trying to tell her we shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down, and it's getting a little cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station out there, with anything decent at least. So we turn it off at about the time that Tan's cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. At this point, the sun is just barely over the horizon, and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer, and we whisper to Tan, asking if he's sure that that's his cousin, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, then walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks a little confused. He says, where's your other little buddy at? I figured she would meet up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether he had been cooking blood in the cabin, because it smelled like blood and hot pans all the way up to the trail. We were all like, fucking nope! But we asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail that Tan had been using, and he had come up on one of you guys' buddies. I don't know why that inflection is there. Standing in the middle of the trail, looking at him slack-jawed. He had asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was just look at him. Then she smiled at him, and he said he kept walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging behind a little bit. He said he asked her if she was hurt or something, and if she needed any help, but she had continued to stare. Eventually, she had been walking and turned around a bend in the trail. But when she turned around and went back to see... he turned around and went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He assumed she had taken some shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on. I half expected him to say we were full of shit, but he just listened and then sat down on the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousins get back to the girl. He says when she had kept trying to lag behind... He says when she had kept trying to lag behind him, it was kind of weirded him the fuck out. So he tried to keep her in front of him, but no matter how slow he walked, he was always lagging a little behind. And that he smelled this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually it got really strong. She said something really low that he didn't catch. And when he turned around, she had been right the fuck up on him, and he stepped back from her. It was at this point he asked if she was okay, and if she wasn't, him to carry her back to the rest of the way. And she just kept staring. He said he reached out for her, as if to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance, because she was off to the side, and where he had put his hand, she had moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we know this shit is real, unless Tan is playing a joke, which we could tell he's not, because he's almost pissing his pants.
Oh my gosh, not his pants.
So they load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we just kind of sit around until about 11. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God that it's some huge prank that my cousins played on me, and I just never realized, so I would shit for the rest of my life. At around 11, The stink of copper turns into an actual nasty, gross, blood-like smell, like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get the fuck up and instantly grab the rifles. There's like a half-knocking, half-clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice. And it sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs whose owners teach them how to talk. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in. Stop playing."
Creepy.
It made my fucking nuts creep up against my body, and one of the girls just started crying and calling on Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence, and that's some shit that I never realized until that moment. But all people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All people have a certain kind of rhythm. This shit didn't have any kind of cadence or rhythm. One of those YouTube cats. That's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. So now, I'm in full-on terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is this? Stop fucking around, man." And it just keeps saying, "In," or "Let me the fuck in," for almost 15 minutes. So then the smell goes away for a while. And for the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple minutes, they'll come back to the door and say something. Finally, when the smell fades away, it's around 2 in the morning right now. Reese says, "Man, fuck this," and opens the door and walks out with his rifle. Fires a shot in the air and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times and then goes to the woods right up against the river across from the trailer. It sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. It sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, I seriously never heard any of this shit like this before. And you can hear the brush over that way start to shake. Reese fires over into the tree line and then starts backing into the house. We lock the door and we can hear this shit keening and screaming. Reese says something had come out of the bushes super low to the ground and crawled toward the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much this is how the rest of the night went. It was literally screaming constantly for the next 2 hours. We could hear shit moving out there in the tree line, but it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in a chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later after the whole thing was over. He said he'd been nodding off after the screaming and the noises finally stopped, and he had almost been asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us and nodded off. Then he said he kind of realized something was wrong, and while pretending to be sleeping, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He basically didn't want to try to shoot at the fucking thing in the cabin and have it kill all of us and then and there, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and then we kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing or heave like it was laughing, but then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weak, because from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up, and I noticed that Tan was a little jittery, and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin, and said he'd locked up and bring me my uncle's keys. To just start walking, and he'd catch up, which I didn't really want to fucking do. We got a little up the path when he came running up. Basically, we just jogged back to his house. His cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were too stupid to lock a screenless window. The window was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up, and then getting in among us. It walked with us all the goddamn way back to the house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group and looked him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods. That's the Goatman story.
That's the Goatman story.
I remember being really scared of that story when I was like 13.
Yeah.
Alright, your turn.
My turn. I mean, parts of it are like the fact that, like, you know, you're not really paying attention to numbers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're
there's
like,
an extra person.
There's an extra person. Why the fuck is there an extra person? Like, that part's creepy.
Yeah. All of the expletives and it felt like my nuts were up inside me. I was just dicking around. All these girls were here, and I don't know their names.
We were dicking around. Alrighty. This is called Colwyn's Corner by Andrea Carroll.
Colwyn's Corner. Okay.
Colwyn's. I usually like to watch TV with my little sister Kimberly. She was only 5, so of course she watched all the cutesy kid shows. I didn't really mind, though. They made her happy, and I liked spending time with her. She watched shows like Dora, Blue's Clues, and Arthur's. We had a lot of DVDs of old kid shows around the house that we would watch. There was a large box of old movies and TV shows in the attic. I took a brief look at it once, but none of them looked like they would appeal to her. One day, Kimberly was at a doctor's appointment, and I thought I'd have some time to watch a movie aimed more towards my age range. So I thought this would be a good time to look through the box of old movies in the attic. While I was looking through the box, I noticed that these movies didn't really interest me, but I kept looking in hopes to find something. Then I saw at the bottom of the box a DV labeled Colwyn's Corner. Many memories started to come back to me. I used to watch the show as a kid. It was about an orange puppet named Colwyn, who lived in a house on the corner of a street. He would often have his other puppet friends come over and play games and sing songs. It was cute and innocent, and I really remember liking it as a kid. I thought this would be a good show to watch for my sister and I. When Kimberly got home, I told her I got a new show for us to watch. She got excited and sat down on the couch while I put the disc in. I sat down next to her as the selection screen popped up. The screen looked just as I remembered it. It showed Colwyn and his friends in front of the house. I chose the first episode and the theme song began. I was a little confused. The colors were a lot darker than I remember, and the song was sung a little slower and in a deeper voice. I didn't think much of it as I hadn't seen the show in a long time, and it's possible I forgot some of the elements of it. The show began pretty normally. Colwyn was in his house and said hello to the viewers. There was a knock on the door and he said, "I think my friends are here." When he opened the door, I felt my heart to my throat. That's what it says. Standing at the door were 2 tall white puppets with no eyes, nose, or mouth. Oh, I'm sorry. With no nose or mouth, only pitch black eyes. I was shocked because I don't even remember these characters on the show. Even the cover of the DVD showed 2 colorful, friendly puppets. I looked over at Kimberly and she had this big smile on her face. I was confused since an image like that would terrify a child. "I'm not sure if we should watch this anymore," I told her. "No, please, keep it on," she exclaimed. Oh, sorry. I continued watching as the giant puppets didn't seem to faze her. 2 large puppets came into the house. Colwyn asked, "What do you guys want to do today?" The one puppet replied with the most horrific sound I've ever heard. It sounded like a man was shouting, almost screaming in a strange language. The audio was very distorted. At this point, I got up, ejected the disc from the VCR, much to Kimberly's disappointment. "Why did you stop it? Put it back on," she said. I didn't listen and put the DVD in a drawer. Even though Kimberly wasn't bothered by the show, I still thought it was too disturbing for a 5-year-old. I had trouble sleeping that night. I kept thinking about the video. I watched that show all the time when I was younger, and I've definitely seen every episode. I don't understand why I don't remember the episode like this. I was still curious about the rest of the episode. I decided to go downstairs and finish it. This is the 5th sentence that starts with I. I took the DVD out of the drawer and put it into the VCR. This is the 6th sentence that starts with I. I put on headphones so the noise wouldn't disrupt my family. That entire paragraph, every sentence starts with I.
Really? Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry, 8. 8 sentences in that paragraph, and they all start with I. The episode began the same, with the strange intro and the large puppets. After the one puppet made the terrifying sound, Colwyn replied, "You're right! We should play a game." Then he grabbed a knife off of the counter. It cut to a live-action arm painted orange to represent Colwyn's. The knife went up the arm and started to cut slits, each one deeper than the last. Colwyn started to scream a blood-curdling scream. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt sick to my stomach. Blood gushed out of the wounds as the scream got louder and louder. It then cut to a live-action neck, painted orange. The knife went up to the throat and cut a deep slit in it, and the blood began to gush out. It showed Colwyn gasping heavily for air before his eyes turned completely white. The episode ended with him falling to the ground as the two tall white puppets looked directly into the camera with pitch-black eyes. I was utterly terrified at this point. I immediately ejected the DVD and threw it in the trash. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about that episode. I got up in the morning and went downstairs to get some breakfast. I walked past Kimberly's room and saw she wasn't in there. When I got downstairs, I saw her on the couch, finishing up the horrific episode I watched last night. I immediately grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Where did you get the DVD?" I shouted. "It was in the garbage," she replied. "I took it out because I wanted to finish the episode."
Is this just The Ring?
"This show is very bad," I shouted. "No, it's not. They were just baking a cake."
Oh.
"What?" I said. "The episode about Colwyn was his friends baking a cake," she replied. I was shocked. "What did his friends look like?" I asked. "One was blue and one was red," she said. "I really liked it. Can I watch it again?" And that's it.
Oh!
So creepy.
So basically, just fucking, she just went to the next episode.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, check it out. This one you can see how short it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has read times at the top.
Does it?
It should. If you got it from the actual Creepypasta site.
Creepypasta.org?
Yeah.
It says short.
The ones that I found have read times.
Oh.
So, like the next one.
Oh, I'm at a different website.
See, it says 7 minutes.
Damn it. All right. So next episode, I promise.
Get them straight from the actual site. Don't get them from somewhere else because it tells you the actual breakdown.
Oh. Okay, this is called The Expressionless. I remember really enjoying this one as a kid, okay? In June of 1972, a woman appeared at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, California, in nothing but a white, blood-covered gown. Now, this, in and of itself, should not be too surprising, as people often have accidents nearby and come to the nearest hospital for medical attention. But there were two things that caused people who saw her to vomit and flee in terror. The first being that she wasn't exactly human. She resembled something close to a mannequin, but she had the dexterity and fluidity of a normal human being. Her face was as flawless as a mannequin's, devoid of eyebrows, and smeared in makeup. Well, that doesn't sound flawless, but, you know, I mean, most mannequins I see are fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a kitten clamped in her jaws, so unnaturally tight that no teeth could be seen, and the blood was still squirting out over her gown and onto the floor. She then pulled it out of her mouth, tossed it aside, and collapsed. From the moment she stepped through the entrance to when she was taken to a hospital room and cleaned up before being prepped for sedation, she was completely calm, expressionless, and motionless. The doctors thought it best to restrain her until the authorities could arrive, and she did not protest. They were unable to get any kind of response from her, and most staff members felt too uncomfortable to look directly at her for more than a few seconds. But the second the staff tried to sedate her, she fought back with extreme force. Two members of staff had to hold her down as her body rose up on the bed with the same blank expression. She turned her emotionless eyes towards the male doctor and did something unusual. She smiled. As she did, the female doctor screamed and let out of shock. In the woman's mouth were not human teeth, but long, sharp spikes. Too long for her mouth to close fully without causing any damage. The male doctor stared back at her for a moment before asking, "What the hell are you?" She cracked her neck.
Killer.
She cracked her neck down to her shoulder to observe him, still smiling. There was a long pause. The security had been alerted and could be heard coming down the hallway. As he heard them approach, she darted forward, sinking her teeth into the front of his throat, ripping out his jugular and letting him fall to the floor, gasping for air as he choked on his own blood. She stood up and leaned over him, her face coming dangerously close to his, as the life faded from his eyes. She leaned in closer and whispered in his ear, "I am God!"
Oh.
The doctor's eyes filled with fear as he watched her calmly walk away to greet the security men. His last ever sight would be watching her feast on them one by one. The female doctor who survived the incident named her the Expressionless. There was never a sighting of her again.
Good, she killed kittens. Fuck her.
Yep. Yeah. Man, these are not good in modern eyes.
Nope.
Here. Would you mind reading this one for me really quickly?
Just that?
This.
Oh. The pasta. So you're with your honey, and you're making out when the phone rings. You answer it, and in the voice it says, "What are you doing, my daughter?" You tell your girl, and she says, "My dad is dead." Then who was phone?
So there's two versions of that, apparently. That's the pasta, so like a copy pasta.
Wait, but I feel like I need to spell out all of the weird spellings.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, it's so you are with you are honey, and why you are making out when WEN the phone rings. You capital U ANSER, and then N. The voice is WUT. Are you doing WIT? My daughter. Capital U. You are N.
It's awful.
My dad. It's DED.
It's awful.
Then who was phone?
The punchline is then who was phone?
Who was phone?
The original goes, okay, so basically
it's not my dad. It's a cell phone.
Okay, so basically it's like this. You were at a friend's house for like the night or whatever, and then you guys are making out on the couch. Yeah. And then like her dad calls on the phone and says, "No, she likes it more if you use the other hand." Yeah. And you're all like, "Oh, dude, your dad is trying to give me advice on how to diddle you." And then she's like, "I don't have a dad," or whatever. But what? Whose phone?
Dude, where's my car? Okay. This one is called Carrots and Whiskey.
Carrots and Whiskey.
By Stephen D. Jackson. Estimated read time, 7 minutes. The alarm was horribly loud in his left ear. A persistent, high-pitched beat forcing him from his dreamless, alcohol-soaked slumber into a hangover-heavy wakefulness. Jim groaned, rolling away from the incessant machine and negligently silencing it with a lucky swipe of his arm. His head felt thick and fuzzy, his tongue dry, and his stomach on the verge of rebellion. Jim opened his eyes and peered at the silver cloud of morning light showing through the curtains as half-recalled memories danced across his mind. A crowd of his friends in the pub, reindeer jumpers, a sexy elf serving behind the bar. Oh God, it's Christmas morning. Wild panic stabbed through him and he turned to his side. Sandra was missing. The empty space behind him was cold. She'd been gone a while. It had been his turn last night. He remembered that clearly. He'd made her the promise as he'd headed out. Wrapping his scarf around his neck, he'd stepped to the door, giving her a smile and saying that of course he wouldn't forget. How could he? Christmas Eve is the most vitally important night of the year. A basic trip out with friends wouldn't change that. But they'd had a couple of drinks, and then Harry suggested a couple more. He'd barely realized he'd had so much until he stood up to head home and almost fallen over. They'd sung some songs on the way back, passed each other drunken warnings about not forgetting to put out the carrots and whiskey, and he'd stumbled in fully intending to do so. But then his memory was blank. Did I put them out?
Oh.
What if he'd forgotten? Sandra was missing. Ripping the duvet off, he clambered out of bed and hurried in to check on Owen. The kid was sleeping soundly, which, considering it was Christmas, was unusual. He must finally be growing up, which at the age of 8 was well overdue. In years past, he'd bounded out of bed at the crack of dawn, thrilled with the excitement of presents and determination to make every second of the day a test of his parents' patience. Jim's heart began to calm its manic pounding at the sight of his son. He hadn't been taken. He sagged against the doorframe for a moment, recovering his composure and trying to ignore the throbbing headache rattling his skull. Slowly he closed the door and stepped back into the hall, enjoying the flood of relief which momentarily washed away some of the guilt. Sandra was in the kitchen, huddled in her fluffy white dressing gown and nursing a cup of coffee. She looked terrible. Pale and haunted, her dark hair hung lankly around her shoulders and her eyes stared unseeing at a point far away. "Morning, hun," he ventured tentatively, reaching for the kennel. "Merry Christmas." Her glazed eyes moved to his, her expression bleak. "Merry Christmas? That's what you say to me?" "I'm sorry, honey. I'm so sorry." He hesitated, torn between wanting to fill the kettle and not wanting to seem insecure. He shuffled his feet. "You're sorry," she replied flatly, turning her back to her coffee. "You have no idea what I went through. I woke up, you were there, snoring away in your clothes." She gave him an accusing, angry glare. "Good thing I decided to check that you'd done what you said you'd do, wasn't it?" "Yes," he said meekly, looking down at his feet and feeling thoroughly miserable. "But you hadn't." "No." What else was there to say? "Jesus, Jim. How could you be so reckless?"
God damn it, Jim.
It would be no excuse to say he had been drunk. No excuse it was Christmas Eve and he had been with friends he only got to see once a year. It wouldn't help to remind her that she could have easily as put out the whiskey and carrots. There was no reason it had to be him every damn time. No reason why she was allowed to shirk the responsibility year after year, just so that she had the reason to tell him not to be out so late. That is, besides her jealousy that he had friends that weren't her.
Whiskey and Carrots kind of sounds like the new Neil Young album.
Right. He settled on just saying he was sorry again, turning away to fill the kettle. To his relief, she said nothing more about it. "So, how's it look out there? You catch the news yet?" She sighed, a resigned, miserable sigh. "Didn't have to. There's a news crew outside the Thompsons. Looks like they forgot." Jim turned, the kettle forgotten. The Thompsons weren't really friends of theirs, but they were decent people. They got together every now and then for a drink, discussed their kids or school, that kind of thing. To think that they were gone, taken by the demon for the crime of forgetting to place its bizarre demands, was horrifying. "Jesus," he breathed. "Could have been us," Sandra said.
Could have been us.
Wasn't accusatory, just factual. Her face was that of a person who'd just been pulled back from the edge of a cliff, ashen and wan, her eyes wide, staring as though she could see her narrowly avoided fate playing out before her. He crossed the kitchen and hugged her, feeling a new kind of guilt when she hugged him back tightly and they sobbed into his t-shirt. They stood that way for a while, neither one of them moving, their minds playing out the horror of what could have been, until Owen came bouncing into the kitchen, clutching the bag of presents he'd found at the end of his bed. "Mummy! Daddy! Father Christmas came!" He enthused in a way that only very small children can, dragging the sack over.
Daddy! Father Christmas came!
For a second, Jim couldn't summon the parental good cheer he needed, struggling to put the near miss to the back of his mind.
Yeah, God damn it. Yeah, buddy.
And drag up his daddy at Christmas persona. In a way, though it pained him to admit it, he was looking forward to when they no longer had to pretend. When Owen would be old enough to finally learn the truth about the creature that clattered around the house on Christmas Eve. The being that parents across the world conspired to portray as a jolly present giver in order to to avoid discussion of the dark truths too terrible for young minds.
Oh my god.
The perfect universal lie that sent kids running early to bed on the one night of the year that they were the most vulnerable, and kept them in their rooms feigning sleep if they heard any strange sounds during the night. Normally it didn't bother him, but this morning, having come so close to disaster, it was harder than usual to put the necessary spin on the beast that had visited them in the night. Especially when he'd spent so many hours wrapping all the little presents he now had to attribute to the thing that was very nearly murdered them all. Wow, lucky you, honey,
Wow.
Sandra finally said, convincingly excited gasp. Go ahead, take your sack into the living room and we'll see what her eyes met Jim's and mouthed the words, get it together. Owen obviously ran off happily, pulling his sack of presents behind him. Jim nodded, took a deep breath, as Sandra followed their son into the living room. A few minutes later, he was standing by the window, staring at the crowd outside the Thompsons, making appropriately encouraging responses to his son's wild cries of happiness and exclamations of what he was going to do with his toys. The news crew was solemn, and behind them the police were taping off the doors and windows to the house. No ambulance had been called. There were no bodies. There never were. The news was playing at a dim volume on the TV behind them. But snatches of the report were getting through to him, linking him to the horror outside in flashes of juxtaposition to the joy his son was experiencing inside. The contrast made him feel sick. Once again, the reporter said behind Jim in that light but strained voice they always used to deliver these reports, the tension only noticeable by adults. This Christmas has given us the highest number of visitors since records began. Some speculation has focused on our growing population for the figures, but it seems clear that a large population of visitors were from newly arrived migrant families. Whilst it is common knowledge that the visitation requirements do differ from country to country, some people just forget to change their Christmas traditions. Daddy, Owen said chirpily from behind him.
Daddy!
Jim turned to see that the boy was watching the TV with interest. Yes, Owen? Why do some people get to visit Father Christmas and others don't? Sandra caught his eye, giving almost imperceptible shake over the head. He looked away, wondering if this might be the moment to let the child in on the horrible truth. What was that? Was that the responsible thing to do? Well, he said, measuring his words, if people don't put out their carrot and whiskey, then they get to go to visit Father Christmas. So it could happen to anyone. Why don't we go then? I'd like to visit. Can we go next year? Jim looked at Sandra. She looked away. But we don't need to see Father Christmas, Owen. He comes to us. That's why Mommy put the whiskey and carrot last night. He pointed to the little plate next to the Christmas tree and the shot glass next to it. The glass was empty, and Jim had absolutely no intention of using either the glass or the plate ever again. A goofy-looking stuffed snowman had fallen across the plate, no doubt knocked by the talons of the beast as it reached for the carrot. Jim shuddered to imagine it, delicately lifting the carrot off the ceramic without leaving a mark. When did you do that, Mummy?
When did you do that, Mummy?
Asked Owen, peering around his mother over the pile of shredded wrapping paper. Did you get to see Father Christmas? Sandra gave a sickly smile that looked more like a grimace and shook her head. No, honey, I just came downstairs last night and put a glass of whiskey next to the carrot your father put out. Jim's heart nearly stopped. He stared at her, wondering if that was meant to be some kind of joke. From somewhere far away he could hear his son babbling, but the words no longer made sense. Sandra was watching Owen indulgently, shaking her head at something he'd said. You didn't put out a carrot? He managed to say, just about keeping his voice from rising into a hysterical shriek. She looked up, her face now wearing a similar expression to the one he imagined was on his. What? she said sharply, her eyes falling to the little plate and widening in sudden, awful realization. Jim's stomach tightened in a cold knot. Owen seemed to pick up on the sudden tension, his expression curdling like sour milk. He started to breathe in that heavy way with his shoulders moving, that his parents knew both preceded a tantrum. Jim looked down, the pieces suddenly falling into place like a horrific nightmare jigsaw. The little stuffed snowman, his long stuffed nose across the white ceramic plate. His tired wife, mistaking it for a carrot, putting out the whiskey.
Wait.
And going back to bed.
The picture on the plate?
No. So a stuffed snowman.
Uh-huh.
You have a carrot for nose.
Yeah.
Fell over on the plate.
Oh, that's still dumb, but continue.
Oh, dear God, he whispered as a thick, deep voice filled with hatred and dripping with obscene desire gurgled at them from within the mound of discarded wrapping paper. Ho, 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 it cackled. As the colorful wrappings exploded outward, Owen screamed.
No! Carrots and whiskey, huh?
Carrots and whiskey.
They could have kept it cookies and milk. They didn't have to make it fucking... Alright.
Well, I know there are parts of the world that do that, though.
Carrots and whiskey?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting. Alright, this one's called Bob and Bigfoot by Bowser.
Oh.
Okay. Bob the hunter closed the trunk of his car. He was dressed in the finest of hunter apparel. What?
Is this erotica?
No.
Okay.
Why? I wouldn't do that on our first one.
Well...
He was dressed in the fight. Why did you immediately think it was erotica?
I just had a flashback to that Guy Fieri and Bigfoot one.
That's a good one. He was dressed in the finest of hunter apparel. He wore brand new camo pants, an orange vest with roomy pockets, and big shiny boots. Even his vehicle, a polished and gleaming Hummer, spoke the need, the desire, dare I say, that manly lust for the dispatching of little furry creatures. The most important item of his manly ensemble, however, was his gun. It was a fine gun, passed down from generation to generation. Bob hoisted the gun in manly fashion and slung it over his shoulder. It was time to go hunting. This goes out to all the hunters. It's hunting season right now, by the way.
They gotta be so manly and so manly in hunting.
Mm-hmm. Just like Bob here.
Just so manly.
Bob strode in through the bush, crushing plants with his waffle-bottom boots. He kicked aside lowly branches with his steel tips. and should the offending limb be too large to crush or push aside, he would stop and pull out the glinting 14-inch machete from the back scabbard and begin hacking. Over the shoulder it came, down it whistled, and another bit of Mother Nature bit the dust. Bob was in heaven. Long had he waited for this day. He had polished his boots, knowing that they would just get muddy. He had ironed the brim of his hunter's hat so it flopped on one side ever so just. He had brassoed every bit of metal he could find, even the tips of his custom shoelaces, even the nails in the bottom of his big boots. Now, the day was here. At last, his urges could be satisfied. Finally, he froze. He was on the edge of the meadow, still in the twilight of the branches, and he had caught sight of motion. Careful not to make a sound, Bob slithered through the underbrush. As he moved, he studied the creature he was stalking. Stalking is spelled with a U, apparently.
Oh.
A-U. Though it was standing in a hunched manner, it looked awful big to be a bear. This sucker was near 10 feet tall. Of course, on hind legs, bears stood awful. Oh my God, it was Bigfoot! Sasquatch himself, and oh, was it a beaut. It was near 10 feet tall, and it looked to be over 600 pounds. The coat was brown and thick and luxurious, just fine for a rug. And it moved with a surprisingly light gait. It stepped over logs, bent to look at something in the grass, then raised its head and sniffed the air. The neck was thick and the head was small, and it looked like a little bit of an ape. Trembling, sweating, aware that so much hung on this moment, Bob unslung his rifle, he lifted it up, and fitted stock to shoulder. He breathed on the varnished wood and sighted down the long length of the blued metal. There he was, in the crosshairs, in the cross of the hairs. He inspected the Sasquatch as it were mere feet away from him. It had a low forehead with thick ridges of bone over the eyes. The eyes were dark pupils surrounded by red veins. Under the eyes, the nostrils were aimed forward out of a flat nose. It sniffed the air and appeared to be most suspicious. Stilling himself, ignored the sweat dripping from his forehead, knowing he only had a moment before the creature detected him, Bob began to squeeze the trigger. Bigfoot's big, hunkered shape, Bob's fingers trembling. A drop of sweat from his forehead moving slowly past his eyes to splash on the polished wood. The mechanism in the trigger assembly snapping like a high-tech mousetrap. Boom. Smoke rose up and momentarily obscured Bob's vision. His eyes were near deafened by the tremendous report. He peered through the dissipating smoke only to see the Sasquatch was charging across the meadow towards him. Bob tried to reload the rifle, but his fingers were all askew. It was as if somebody had switched his fingers and they were all playing musical chairs. The creature closed to within feet, and this close, it towered over him. Oh, it was a monster most glorious. It loomed over Bob nearly twice as tall as the cowering hunter. It had huge hands with strong fingernails that looked like it could rip the bark off a tree. This close, its hot breath washed over Bob, and he was aware of a putrid, gagging odor emanating from the thing. Standing so tall, its gigantic head spread out in a rage. It roared, "You motherfucker! You son of a cock-sucking bitch! You fucking tried to murder me!" The shadow of the mythical creature, not a myth any longer, occluded all light, and Bob fell to his knees and began babbling. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The gun just went off. I didn't mean to. Bull fucking shit. You meant to do it, and you know it. And now you have to give me oral sex. Bob's mouth dropped open in shock. He raised his hands, palm outwards, as if to try to ward off this terrible thing. But he really had no chance. Bigfoot unrolled his body.
You're such a fucking liar!
And Bob helplessly watched the big, thick hunk of hairy vein.
Oh my god!
I can keep going.
I hate you.
Don't say that. I'm done.
You're the fucking worst.
I'm done.
You're the fucking worst. I just knew it.
I'm sorry. You seem so mad at me.
Well, you specifically were like, I promise it's not erotica. I would never do that in our first episode. Proceeds to then read erotica.
Yeah. It took a long time to find one that Henry hadn't done already.
Oh, God. You know what?
What?
With that cliffhanger.
Really? You don't have another one?
I did, but it's getting late.
Okay.
And we've got a decent amount of time.
We do, yeah.
So.
Okay. I'm sorry I ruined the night. I wanted to read something spooky.
That's not spooky, it's erotica.
Hey, give me both.
No,
Are you mad at me?
No, I'll get over it.
Okay. You are mad at me!
Didn't want to taint our show with Bigfoot erotica.
I can cut all that out, and then I can read another one.
No.
I do have a real one.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
If I promise to never do Bigfoot erotica, will you not be mad at me no more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I thought it'd be funny.
It's a little funny.
It's a little funny.
But I'm still mad about it.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, everybody, I hope we spooked you. I really hope we did. You sure you don't want to read one more? No? You're tired?
I'm tired.
Okay. Cool. Well, happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy
There's
Halloween,
no news
everybody.
this week or anything like that. I hope you enjoyed this. We had fun doing it.
Yeah. It was
until I
good.
apparently ruined it. Allie, do you got anything?
If you really want to hear Chad read Bigfoot erotica, let us know. We'll start
set up a Patreon, and I'll read Bigfoot
Yeah.
erotica.
But I'm not.
That one is amazing because it at no point does it feel like erotica and you have to give me oral sex.
I had a feeling.
Really?
Just based off of his shiny boots and his new fresh camo, and I was like, this is erotica.
I tried to find a Guy Fieri one.
This is erotica.
I tried to find a Guy Fieri. Or Zach Baggins. I tried to find a Zach Baggins creepypasta.
Like I said, he probably sued everybody that tried to write one.
Right. Well, anyways, happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this. It's a fun little experiment. Stay safe out there, everyone.
See you, fuckers!